Did you know that the rules around estate planning can be very different from country to country? Hi, it's Nancy Beaubier here with Agape and NEXsteps. I wanted to talk about something this week that really a lot of us don't really think about unless we come across it. Not that long ago, I had a call from somebody who was a recent immigrant to Canada, and they had seen my videos here on YouTube, and they had some questions about a will because they came from a jurisdiction that her relatives never thought about a will. And that made me a little bit curious about this because obviously my understanding of estate planning revolves around the creation of a will. So I looked into this, and the rules around estate planning vary broadly from country to country. There are a lot of countries that are ruled by either a religious law or civil law. And in those cases, the rules around estate planning are very different than they are here in Canada and other common law countries. In those religious-run countries, there is a hierarchy of how things pass on. But even in civil law countries, there are often hierarchies, if you will, of how things pass on. And in some of these countries, you don't have a choice. There's no point in making a will because it's already predetermined by your country's law about how your assets, how what you have will pass on in your family. You don't get the choice of choosing who gets what, and you certainly don't get the choice of saying that somebody doesn't get something. You can't disinherit somebody in some of these countries. Even when people move from other common law countries like the UK or the United States, when they move to Canada, although the basis of our planning is extremely similar because we are ruled by common law, there are nuanced differences in how intestacy laws act and how things pass on to other people. So this can be a big hurdle for people with their estate planning. And it's a big education for a lot of immigrants to this country to understand I don't want to call it urgency, but really the responsibility, if you will, to create that estate plan. It's going to be different in Canada than it was in your home country. So it is really important that you understand what the rules are, how our laws work, and why it is so important to create these documents. Even things like your power of attorney and your medical directive. These are things that likely don't come into play in some of these other countries. But here you can be left, really, your family can be left really struggling with any kinds of solutions if you become incapacitated, unable to speak for yourself. And certainly, if you pass away and you haven't created a will because you don't know that that is so important here in Canada, it leaves you passing away intestate, which really can hold things up and create a whole lot of problems. The other thing that you need to consider is when you are naming an executor here in Canada, there are rules and laws around that as well. Although you can name anybody you want as an executor, there can be obstacles. If you pass away in Alberta and you've named an executor from another province, the Alberta courts could make that executor have to post a bond. When you name beneficiaries, you need to make sure that you're doing your tax planning as well, because when you're naming your beneficiaries and you name somebody, if you're in Canada, you name somebody in the US, or you name somebody in a different country, there's different tax implications and how the inheritances are handled. It also can take much longer to settle your estate. Now, I'm certainly not suggesting that you would cut out your heirs and beneficiaries just because they live in a different jurisdiction or a different country. What I am suggesting is that you meet with somebody and you make sure that you're doing your estate planning in such a way that it's going to be tax efficient. Your heirs and beneficiaries aren't going to be subject to crazy taxation or double taxation. It really pays to make sure that you talk to a professional about these things. I talk to people every day, and they're always looking to cut costs. And I understand being frugal. I understand about not overspending as the executor what is in the estate. But at the same time, if you make mistakes, it can cost far more than the cost of having consultation with a professional, getting professional advice, and moving forward with knowledge instead of, I think I know, or Google told me. I'm a certified executor advisor. I help give this guidance to people. If you're stuck and you don't know where to go, give me a call. But I did want to make this point. We have a large number of immigrants, and this is something if you're moving outside of Canada to another country. You should make sure that you understand what the rules around inheritance and legacy are in that country as well, to make sure that you know what you're doing and you're making your estate plan in an appropriate fashion for that country. As always, I've got the article over on the website. The link is over in the description box. Please check it out. Learn a little bit more about this. If you know people who have moved to this country, ask them. Raise the question. I know it's an uncomfortable topic, but if they're your friends, you want to make sure that they're educated as well. Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to sharing more with you next time. Bye for now.